Alright, so, hey everyone, hope you're having a good day. We're back again with another MTGA Singleton deck tech for the Storm the Citadel event. If you don't know what Singleton is, it's a format where your 60 card deck can only contain one copy of any non-basic land card. So, at the bottom of the screen you'll see a 60 card deck as you'd expect, but there's an awful lot of different cards in there because of this restriction. Looking at the mana base, looking at the deck name, you'd think it might be a bug deck, so black, blue, green. It's more a Golgari deck touching on blue for certain cards, which we'll have a look at when we get through the deck. And the astute among you have probably recognised MULDROTHA the Gravetide straight away. A casual favourite, very sweet card, currently, or was available in Dominaria draft up until Friday when it swapped over to Ranked War. This deck, kind of a mid-range deck, lots of value, similar to the Golgari and Sultai decks in Standard. So a lot of ways to draw additional cards to gain incremental advantage over your opponent, and then a lot of ways to grind out in the late game as well with cards like MULDROTHA. So going through the choices in the deck, you have Llanowar Elves on 1. Every green deck in the format seems to run Llanowar Elves. It's your 1/1 mana accelerant. If you have it, it lets you start playing 3s as early as turn 2, and being one step ahead of your opponent in terms of the curve is especially powerful in a deck like this where you have powerful players you can be making up the curve. The 2-drop slot, you've got Wild Growth Walker, which probably stands out to you. In Singleton, it's less likely to trigger as often or as reliably as you can do in Standard, but when it does trigger, you get a lot of advantage from that, growing the Walker, gaining the life, and a 1/3 for 2 as the fail rate isn't the worst, especially if your opponent's on an aggressive Boros or Rakdos deck that do seem to be plaguing the queues at the moment. In terms of our Explorers in the 2-drop slot, we've got Merfolk Branch Walker, the Explorer you usually expect to see on 2, but also Seeker's Squire, kind of act as a second 2-drop Explore creature. The only real difference is the swap stats, but both are powerful at accruing advantage at becoming reasonably sized creatures if you miss, and interacting with Wild Growth Walker. Druid of the Cowl, Incubation Druid, Paradise Druid, your typical green ramp creatures, fill out the 2-drop slot for you in terms of creatures at least. And then we have Cast Down and Assassin's Trophy in the form of efficient 2 mana removal, again in the Golgari colours, because the blue is more of a splash in the deck. The other 2 cards at the 2 converted mana cost slot, you have Hydroid Krasis and Finale of Eternity, both of which are actually larger plays, but because they have that X in them, they occupy that slot in the deck. The Hydroid Krasis, this is one of the blue splashes. In the late game, it's a powerful way to draw a lot of cards, refill your hand, gain some life. And early in the game, turns 4-5, it's still serviceable as a 2/2, 3/3 flyer that accrues a small amount of advantage when it enters the battlefield. Finale of Eternity is just a straight 3/1. If X is 10 or more, you're probably going to win the game. If not on the spot, but after you untap the following turn. But otherwise 3/1, even when X is below 10, is a great rate on this card. The 3-drops, there's only 4 of them in the deck, but they're all powerful in their own right. You have Jade Light Ranger, the larger Explore creature, 2 Explore triggers. Really gives you some choices in terms of what you can take off the top of the deck, what you can put in the graveyard. And worst case, 2/1 draw 2 cards. Never a bad thing. Thrashing Brontodon, overstatted for the converted mana cost and has the ability to pick off artifacts and enchantments. And like we said in the previous video, there do tend to be more artifacts and enchantments in Singleton because of the broad range of cards that opponents end up playing, because of White's removal choices, things like Search for Azcanta, the Immortal Sun, all of which Thrashing Brontodon incidentally hoses. Thief of Sanity is another one of our blue splashes. In a lot of cases, once it starts hitting your opponent, the advantage it accrues can run away with the game, especially in a format like Singleton where there's a lot of mid-range decks, a lot of control-y decks with Planeswalkers. Thief of Sanity will typically get you something tasty off the top of an opponent's library, and it makes it a must-deal with creature. Vivien's another incremental advantage engine. She comes into play, she can let your creatures become more defensive by granting vigilance and reach, or if you're on a stable board, you can start minusing. You can start getting value by putting creatures into exile. And as long as she's on the battlefield, all your creatures are coming in with flash, so you can become slightly more reactive. We do have things in the deck like Ravenous Chupacabra that at instant speed become even more powerful. Speaking of which, Chupacabra is the first of our 4-drops. Hostage Taker is another one of the blue cards in the deck, a powerful effect that's found a home in Standard. Golgari Finebroker is a 3/4 for 4. The mana cost quite restrictive, but again, think of the deck as a Golgari deck splashing blue rather than straight bug. So in this case, when it enters the battlefield, you return a permanent from the graveyard to your hand, Again, all about 2-for-1s, all about incremental advantage, and the rate on the body isn't terrible. In Limited, you'll play a 3-4-for-4, less so in Standard, but this card is here for its enter the battlefield trigger, and again can happen at instant speed if you do flash it in off Vivien. Vraska's Contempt, your standard flexible removal, instant speed, kills a creature, kills a planeswalker, gains a bit of life, does everything you want in your removal spell. And speaking of Vraska, we have Vraska the Golgari Queen, one of our 4-drop planeswalkers. She's been finding a home in Standard a bit more as of late, and she's a powerful play in this deck. She gets to destroy things down the curve, helping you stabilize the board, and then if she's in a position where she's just able to tick up unthreatened, eventually her ultimate is likely to win the game for you. A lot of power in the card for 4 mana. Tamiyo, Collector of Tales, is our other 4-mana planeswalker. While Vraska impacts the board, what Tamiyo does is, again, she's more of a value engine. You can't discard cards, you can't sacrifice permanents from a static, but a +1 filling your graveyard gives you potential targets for things like Golgari Finebroker, for Command the Dreadhorde for MULDROTHA, but also her -3 lets you pick those cards back out of the graveyard herself, so she's an engine in a card. The 5-drop slots, you get a lot of sweet cards at 5, especially in black and green. Doom Whisperer, what a horror, what a terrifying card. Already overstatted Flampler, and you can pay 2 life to Surveil 2 whenever you want to. Just fix draws off the top of your deck, avoid drawing lands in the late game. Pretty powerful card. Massacre Girl as well, if you can set up the board appropriately, doesn't even need flash off Vivien to be insanely powerful. You do have the smaller creatures to set up kind of Massacre Girl chains to sweep the board, leaving you with a 4-4 menace. Biogenic Ooze, if it's not dealt with on its own, typically runs away with the game. By the time your end step happens, you will have 2/3/3 oozes, and it only gets better for you from there. The Eldest Reborn, the Rise of Nicol Bolas, powerful card, seen standard play. It's the only saga in the deck, but at each chapter of the saga, you are gaining some more advantage, and if it does go off, if it does get to chapter 3, you get to return something from either player's graveyard to the battlefield under your control, whether that's a creature, whether that's a planeswalker. It may be one of your own, it may be one of your opponents, and with cards like Golgari Finebroker or MULDROTHA the Gravetide, you can get more value off that returning a permanent than just the card you're putting into play. You can get your triggers, you can get your additional value. Again, it's part of this grindy engine. Nissa, who shakes the world, is just incredibly powerful on her own. She can ramp you into a large finale, large crisis, just playing your 6-drops. The lands that can attack can threaten planeswalkers, threaten your opponent's life total. It's a card that's powerful enough for Standard, very castable in this deck, and certainly powerful enough to be here. Vivien Reid, fallen out of favour in Standard now Nissa's arrived, but again, demonstrated its power previously in the Sultai decks and the Simic decks, and here, again, she's digging for creatures. She's got flexibility in the -3, plenty of targets, and her ultimate is again game-winning in a deck with creatures as we are playing. The 6-drop slot, we have Finality, Golgari Staple, either returning 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, so again, getting that grindy advantage, or Finality, if you really need a sweeper, you can typically allow one of your larger creatures to survive the sweep with the counters as well. The 6s are where the fun really begins. You have Carnage Tyrant. Can't argue with the 7/6 Trample Hexproof, especially against the more controlling decks, because due to the restrictions of the Singleton format, they're less likely to be having as many sweepers as they otherwise may want. So 1 Kaya's Wrath, 1 Cleansing Nova. They don't have that reliability, so Carnage Tyrant often sticks and often gets there for you. MULDROTHA the Gravetide, very sweet card, incredible art, super fun, super flavorful. This is the bug card. 6/6 for 6, during each of your turns, you can play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. So the ultimate kind of advantage here. Planeswalker, creature are going to be your typical plays. You've got lands as well if they end up milled off something like Tamiyo, but very powerful. Command the Dreadhorde, being played in Standard at the moment. This deck is set up to fill your graveyard. Cards are going to end up in the graveyard naturally as a result of this grindy game we want to play, and that means we'll have plenty of targets to choose. If our life totals remained high, we don't quite have the reliable Wild Growth Walker shenanigans going on, but we're looking to trade aggressively, we're looking to trade resources, and set ourselves up to profit from a card like this. Liliana, Dreadhorde General, and Vraska Relic Seeker, both powerful planeswalkers in their own right, both excellent mid-range curve toppers, put a lot of pressure on your opponent and can help get you back into a game from behind as well, both of which produce creature tokens to protect themselves and have powerful abilities besides. Same with Ugin the Ineffable as well. Colourless, but again, kind of like Liliana number 2, and in Singleton we're looking to have redundancy of effects. So Bug happens to have Vraska, Ugin, Liliana, Dreadhorde General. We get to play 3 powerful 6-mana Planeswalkers that can take over a game in their own right. And the last non-land card in the deck is Casualties of War. If you can destroy all 5 permanent types, more power to you. Personally, I've only been able to get 4 of them off, haven't hit an artifact. But there's plenty of time for War being legal yet, so we'll see what happens. In terms of the mana base, the Golgari Splash Blue structure the deck comes across. You're only playing a single basic island compared to the 6/6 split of swamps and forests. And then, in terms of your other coloured lands, we have Dimir Guildgate, Drowned Catacomb, Watery Grave, Foul Orchard, Golgari Guildgate, Overgrown Tomb, Woodland Cemetery, Breeding Pool, Hinterland Harbor, Simic Guildgate, and Woodland Stream, so the best fixing available in those colours effectively in Singleton, and then 1 Evolving Wilds as well to fetch those basics, and is likely the reason we're playing 1 basic island at all. So we're going to take this deck for a spin in the game in a moment. But when you play the deck, let me know how it does. If you have any opinions on the deck, have any changes, find any success with it, please let me know in the comments below. But otherwise, let's get into the games with this deck. Okay, so we're going to jump straight into the queue with the MULDROTHA Bug deck, designed by andreliverod. We're going to see what we can do with this pile of sweet mid-range cards. Looking for a nice grindy game. A Chanasu is our opponent. Or a Chanasu. So what do we have here? We have decent mana. Can't cast the Brontodon, but Thief of Sanity, Golgari Queen, we're on the play. We'll keep this 7. This is a nice 7. I figure this is going to lead to a pleasurable game, for us at least. Opponent plays Plains. Is opponent going to be aggressive? Ooh, Skymarcher Aspirant. Finale of Eternity could do some real work here if opponent just plays a lot of small creatures out. Certainly not playing it for 0 though, Arena, so we'll just pass the turn there. Is opponent mono white? That would be exciting. Does it destroy or exile? Just destroys. Fountain of Renewal. And Novice Knight. Okay, so we take 2. We're just going to make Thief of Sanity here. We're not under a ton of pressure. Opponent does gain life, so maybe this is how they grind us. Let's see what's about to happen. Opponent's definitely coming in. We're definitely not blocking. We're on 16. And opponent passes back. Okay, so what are our options? I think we just hit with Thief first and find out. Okay, so I'll take Grateful Apparition. Seems sweet. So we could cast it this turn. Or we could cast Vraska, kill Skymarcher Aspirant, and the opponent would have to enchant Novice Knight to do anything. And they didn't play anything last turn, so it would need to be a 3-mana enchantment or off the top of their deck. Or we could just play Incubation Druid and Grateful Apparition. Or we could just play Incubation Druid and Grateful Apparition. I don't mind that plan, actually, because then what we can do is play Vraska next turn and then immediately proliferate onto it. So I think that's probably better. And also, we can always adapt the Incubation Druid. So take Vengeance the Thief. This is the only trigger we're getting with it. Fair enough, opponent. Skymarcher's coming in, no blocks. We are going to Vraska it, though. Yep. So Vraska, Golgari Queen. -3 on Skymarcher. We'll play Foul Orchard, and we'll send with the Apparition, and we'll then proliferate onto Vraska. Once Incubation Druid adapts as well, if we still have this Grateful Apparition, we can grow the Incubation Druid. And we still have Finale, and X is currently 4. Gideon Blackblade, that's a powerful card. Can't give the Knight the ability to attack, however. Chupacabra. So we can just trade Vraska for Gideon if we were so inclined. If we were so inclined, we could just trade Vraska for Gideon after a proliferate. And if that's my plan, which I think it might be, we should adapt this Incubation Druid. Please don't tap the Druid. Fantastic. So we adapt the Incubation Druid, we go to combat, we attack with both at our opponent. Or do we? Yes, we do. Opponent goes to 16, we proliferate. We'll proliferate onto both permanents. Vraska will destroy Gideon. So Vraska's kind of a 2-for-1 there. We do miss out on some additional value from not being able to proliferate, but I didn't really want to Assassin's Trophy, give our opponent mana to operate. Lean and War Leader's fine for us. We don't have the mana. Oh, we do have the mana to cast Ugin if we want to. I don't think we do. I think we just play... So what could we do? We could Finale, kill both, seems loose. We'll just Chupacabra the War Leader and attack again. Doesn't mean we can't hold up Assassin's Trophy, but I don't think that's particularly an issue. Put opponent to 12. Sure. Make Druid a 5/7. If opponent has like Cleansing Nova on 5 in their kind of aggressive white deck, that's okay for us. We can definitely rebuild Teo. Teo, the Shield Mage. Okay, so Massacre Girl I can't imagine being a good play for us here, so we're not going to be doing that. Didn't draw a land, unfortunately. Didn't draw a land, unfortunately. -2. So opponent's on 13. Could just play Ugin and make a 2/2. The Incubation Druid does make 3 mana. Yeah, sorry timer, I'm thinking. I guess it doesn't actually make a difference. We'll send both our opponent. And then we'll just make Thrashing Brontodon. Yeah. Like, Teo's loyalty is just trading for life, effectively. So I'm not too concerned. We didn't, we're not going to make Ugin this turn, so we didn't need to play him pre-combat. Well, I have to tap like that, I suppose. No, not casting that. Thank Arena for the targeting interface, and turn. Resolves. Resolves. Yep, another 0/3 wall on behalf of our opponent. Anything to support his allies. Teo's a good guy. Rising Populace. Sure. My turn. What do we draw? Lands. Now we can just make Ugin if we want to. I feel like we probably do just want to make Ugin. Are there any good... So if we attack... So we either play Ugin pre-combat and get to proliferate onto Ugin, which is delicious. Or... Oh, actually, opponent's at 13. What's this? 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. We can put opponent to 1 by casting Finale of Eternity. That's probably good enough. How much do we have? We have 6 mana. We might as well do X as 4. Just Plague Wind our opponent. Sure are some triggers there from Rising Populace. Next. All attack, go face. Put opponent to 1. Populate onto the Incubation Druid. Proliferate onto the Incubation Druid even. Which is a 7/9. That's quite the Incubation Druid. I'd love to see what it actually looked like. Baffling End, I imagine, is going to eat the Incubation Druid. Sure, opponent's still at 2. They need at least 2 blockers here. Martyr of Dusk is 2 blockers, just not at the same time. All attack. All attack our opponent. Our opponent does explode. Cool. So that was a fun game. Got a win. Got a win on the scoreboard. We'll play another game with the deck, though. Just to see how it plays out in the second game, because that's the benefit of Singleton decks. You get a different game each time, different curve, different cards, different opponent. We are playing third, even though both of our avatars are Gideon. Okay, so what do we have here? This is an interesting hand. I don't really like it, and we are playing the London Mulligan in this event. So we have 2 6-drops, 2 cards that need us to find green, and 3 lands. So 3 land I like. I don't like our lack of green and our lack of interaction. This hand I'm much more in favour of. We have 3 lands, 3 powerful spells, and an uncastable Jade Light. So I think Jade Light is the card that we are going to be putting back under the London Mulligan. Goodbye, Jade Light Ranger. Done. We're done. I'm done with you. No offense. Stomping Ground from our opponent, we draw Paradise Druid. So we'll play Woodland Stream tapped. Remind me not to play Drowned Catacomb, or I'm not casting anything next turn. Okay, cool. Well, we would have drawn the second forest for Jadelight Ranger. But we couldn't guarantee that. If opponent makes a 3-drop, we get to go land Vraska, kill the 3-drop, which is pretty reasonable. Simic Locket. Then the question becomes, is that still a line I'd like to take? And honestly, I think the answer's yes.
Go ahead.
Because it sets our opponent, well, it doesn't set our opponent back any, but it stops them accelerating. They don't have the opportunity to crack it for extra cards later in the game. We can just start ticking Vraska's loyalty up and have that time bomb sat in the corner of our battlefield. Opponent doesn't play anything either, which is pretty fantastic for us. So we will play a land. We will play Seeker's Squire. Well, we're only playing 2 cards next turn, so we're going to open the turn by... Do I want to attack with this Paradise Druid? No, but I definitely want to explore. So if we're not attacking with Paradise Druid, we'll do all this pre-combat and then pass. So we're exploring the Squire, we draw a land off it. I don't know how highly I rate a 1-2, so I'm tempted to just +2 Vraska, sacrificing the Squire to draw a card. Another land, that's fine, we've got our mana. We'll play Incubation Druid. Unless opponent has like Deafening Clarion, we're still going to be able to cast Vraska or... Ooh, we need Paradise Druid to be able to cast Liliana. Oh no, Incubation Druid can make black. Yeah, I think we get in for 2. And then we'll pass. We'll get in for 2 and then we'll pass. Opponent plays their 5th land and they have 4 colours of mana available to them. Sweet mana base opponent. No black mana, so truly they are the good guys. We are the forces of evil. Never mind, they are the forces of evil.
You know what? I'm not done yet.
Okay then. Teferi's on 5. I'd like to be able to kill him. Unfortunately, I cannot. An opponent has 2 mana. So. Oh, we can... So, this is interesting. What do we think opponent can do with 2 mana? They couldn't do anything last turn, because a potential course of action here is just adapt our Incubation Druid and go for Teferi. We could just adapt our Incubation Druid and go after Teferi. So opponent only has 2 mana. There's a lot of ways that goes wrong, though. A lot of ways that goes wrong. So I think we just start with this attack. Well, it looks like it would have worked, which is unfortunate. But that's fine. We're going to make Liliana and plus. Because now we do still have 4 powers worth of creatures to go after Teferi next turn. Wheel plus Vraska. I don't want to sacrifice anything, I just want her loyalty to keep ticking up.
No time for a break.
Teferi does his thing. He's on 4 though. Opponent shocks. What's the 6 mana play? Time Wipe. Okay. Yeah, I wish this Teferi was dead. We do draw 3 cards though. Ooh, and one of them's Vraska's Contempt. Okay. What's the opponent untapping? So we have 3 mana this time. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need black mana, so we're going to have to shock in Overgrown Tomb. But we'll play Branchwalker first, just to see what happens. Cast down. I think we'll put that in the bin. Well, gonna make a zombie. Going to shock in Overgrown Tomb. We're gonna try and kill Teferi now. It works. That's nice. We will increase Vraska's loyalty. We could sacrifice a zombie and just draw 2 cards. I do like drawing 2 cards. Especially now Teferi's been answered. Ooh, Nissa's a good draw. And a Doom Whisperer. I feel like we're kind of going off here. Time wipe out of this mana base, though. I imagine opponents playing Chromatic Lantern in their 60. Sweet deck, Manolith, jeez. Definitely playing Chromatic Lantern. Mobilized District is fine. We draw Krasis. We draw a Krasis. So what's opponent got mana-wise? If we... Okay, so we're going to cast Vraska. Oh, opponent has had enough of our Planeswalkers. Fair enough. So, hopefully you got a bit of an idea of how the deck plays. You accrue advantage with your creatures, with your Planeswalkers, draw a lot of cards, have a lot of fun. Like I said in the deck tech, if you try the deck out for yourself, if you give it a spin, please let me know how it goes. Let me know any changes you might make, any thoughts, opinions about the deck below. And if you are enjoying the content that I'm putting out, if you wouldn't mind subscribing as well if you haven't done already, and if you have, it's much appreciated. Either way, hope you have a great time playing the Storm the Citadel Singleton event, and I'll see you all next time.